You know what the sound of that song means? It's time for our next episode of It's Not the End of the World.
Hey,
okay,
yeah. You kind of threw me off there, Steven. That was completely improv right there, so I was really trying to
What do you mean? This is all improv, Brittany.
Well, exactly, but I'm saying that specifically. Yeah. And I feel like I failed because I should have been able to come up with something better, and I didn't. But salutations, everybody. Thank you for listening to It's Not the End of the World. I just wanted to jump on in the beginning really fast and say that finding out that we're on Spotify, to me, sounds like I'm famous. So I don't really know where everybody else that's participating in the Bearcast podcast, how they feel.
Where they stand on that.
But if you're listening, I hope that we're on the same page and that you know that we're all famous together. And also, just one thing, my dad has been my biggest fan and Steven's fan throughout this whole time of us being ever like recording ourselves talking.
Yes.
When we were on the live radio show at UC. And it was called It's Not the End of the World. Steven invited me on it, and then I told my dad, and he got into it, and then now here we are on Spotify.
On Spotify at the big time now.
And I hope that now that we know the severity of our, what we are expected. I mean, we're on Spotify. There are some things that are expected of us, Steven, that I think we're going to have to get on board with. So we have been practicing some tactics with our voices and all kinds of things that we are trying to...
Some voice deepening techniques.
Yeah, exactly. We want this to be... We now have our own studio. It may or may not be in my overly sized closet, but it works perfectly, and we are ready to give you our episode with everything that we have from our radio room.
Yeah, this is a good radio room. I like it. It's kind of like a little studio.
So we're live on that.
Mm-hmm. So are you ready to start talking about what we planned on talking about today for the rest of this episode? We wanted to motivate everybody today, and I think maybe what spawned the idea was that it's the new year, and everybody kind of jumps on board for the New Year's resolutions, maybe for a week, maybe a month, but they just kind of, teeter off as the year goes on, and maybe it's because what inspired them was something outside of themselves. Maybe it was the fact that it was the new year. It's a ritual, like, oh, let's get motivated for the new year.
Or you entirely had no hopes in 2021 because 2020 could have been your make or break year.
Yeah.
So maybe let's look at it like, let's kill the resistance that is stopping us from being motivated.
Yeah, what gets you motivated, Brittany? I'm wondering.
Well, let's see. So,
like, what gets you out of bed in the morning? What is the thought that keeps you going?
So the first thought in my head when I wake up in the morning is, I hope my rabbit's still alive. And after that, now that's hard because sometimes I like to lay in bed for a little bit before I get up. And then sometimes I like to, get up. Well, sometimes I'm forced because I'm like, oh shit, I'm late. I got to get up and go.
So maybe it's not really the thought that happens upon you when you first wake up, but maybe just something that you value. What motivates you in your life? If you can't,
I was gonna say because that was fair. I was say that was a hard one.
There could be any thought.
I think about a lot of stuff when I get up. But okay, so what queso? That's
queso.
Somebody had mentioned to me about how when I say like okay, so it kind of sounds like queso.
Oh, okay.
That's
funny.
Now that I know that, I always laugh.
I think you're being too self-conscious right now, Brittany.
Yeah.
Just let it out. We want to hear what motivates you.
Okay, so I think it's funny queso. Anyway,
it really is funny.
Salsa. No, so where I'm going, how I get motivated is definitely future talk, future thought, but it's not really the future endurance. It's more of like the future path. So like it doesn't really matter like how fast I'm going to my future. It just kind of matters like which paths I take in that future. And that motivates me because for me, I don't really feel like there is a sole purpose for my reason of life. I think that I generalize it. I get to the fact of, we're humans, we are meant to procreate and then die and procreate and then die. So I don't really get too broad on like, I think what keeps me motivated is like keep limits of range on where I go with my thought. And then instead of just like planning that out for the future, it's like thinking of your future as each moment that you're thinking. So everything that I'm doing right now is going to affect what I'm doing later on. So like just really focusing on the present and then focusing on that future, but not the long-term future. Does that make sense? Like if you're thinking of everything you want long-term, you're most likely going to miss a lot of that stuff because
I think we tend to also, if we look too far into the future, the picture becomes too big for us to handle. So
exactly.
It's like immobilizing.
So I think
to try and plan so far ahead or to have some big goal at some predestined point in the future, like that becomes hard, I think, for people.
Right.
So yeah, like you said, planning something right now and carving the path as you wake up, basically, like deciding what you're going to do that day. You're already determining your future somewhat, It's
right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and it's to think about that, like the path of yourself, like that's motivational just because like I think our egos really love that when we do that. But I also think that the people that you have around and in your life are important to like kind of determine that future. I mean, I think about like with you and I, like our friendship or and everything that we have, and then here we are creating and doing a podcast and doing all that. So like that is something that motivates me into an extent of like not only my future but your future. So for me it helps me to think about like myself and then other people around me, and then that kind of reminds me like I'm not the only one doing this life, you know what I mean? Like I'm not the only one who's trying to figure this out and go this way. So getting together and making something together with people is another way to find that maybe purpose or just to kind of find that
inspiration.
motivation.
I think inspiration for sure, because
and you rub off on people, so your energy's picked up through the people that you're with. So with me and you, the energy is definitely on like a motivational high. Most of the time we are getting together and doing things, it's productive, it's motivational. So yeah, like the people that are in your life are just as important as you playing a factor in your future.
Yeah, and I agree with that for sure. And like having something to work towards doesn't have to have any sort of outcome. Like I don't really like to settle on outcome personally, and I think I even associate the future with outcome in some respect, because we don't actually know where we're going. All we can hope to do is make the best of what time we're in right now. So it's like, I think it's natural for us to try to plan things, because in that sense we know that there's a future. If we're planning, then we're expecting something.
I think I just got so tired of planning,
Yeah, and it's like
I think all the way back to just like middle and high school. Like middle school, you're planning and you're preparing for high school, and then they tell you it's going to be a whole new world. Then they prepare you and they plan you in high school. Like, you're going to go to college, or you're going to do this and you're going to do that. And I feel like ever since I can remember, that's all my life is somebody's plan. I was somebody's plan before I was my own plan.
Yeah. It's so, I think it can be conscientious to be forward thinking in some respects, but it can also hinder you, like, and stress you out.
Wait, hold on. Are we like not agreeing right now? Is that where this is? Like, you think...
I don't know.
Well, I'm just asking because I think this is interesting. So, like, you think we should, like, not that you think everybody, but you just personally think planning is more, like, is that what you're saying? Planning is more important than if somebody who, like, it plays more of an important role if you plan for your future?
No, I don't know. I think it's important to be conscious of what you're doing in the present and focus and invest your effort and action in the present. But it's also helpful to like to maybe envision possibilities, like set some kind of ideal, maybe, because that's
rough draft plan.
maybe not even a plan really so much, but like what is it that you care about? What is important to
Values.
you? Bring it deeper into like, your soul almost. Like what is it that you want from this life? If you really want to get deeper about it.
Right.
Instead of so much focus on the external, like what do you want to plan, and what
Mm-hmm.
it kind of draws your attention more to things like oh, this I need this house or this car by this certain time when I'm this age, and I need this career that's going to give me passion for what I'm doing in my life. And it's like, but if you turn it inward rather, then you start to find more things like virtue and, compassion, things that kind of reside almost in like the ephemeral, like it's not really pinned down to anything specific. It's just as it relates to you, like yourself, I guess. And then you can go anywhere with that. Really, it's like more free, I think, to think of what you want to strive for as being like I don't know, goodness, or bringing goodness to others. I don't know what it might be, but like
Right.
it's more broad, and I think it's more fulfilling if people can strive for those kinds of things in their life rather than the other things, because the other things you get them and then you're like, oh, I'm not really satisfied
Right.
anymore. I'm satisfied for that
Yeah.
moment, and then you're like, oh, I need something else, and then it's like
My
that's productive for sure.
yeah.
That's like you're getting stuff done, but are you really fulfilled?
My advice for people who ever feel like when they're planning that they are just so stressed out with planning, then you probably should stop planning just for a little bit, because I used to be that person where it was like pushed on me to plan, plan, get here, do this, not by like my parents or anybody, but just by like teachers and everybody. It was always like maybe it was my behavior, but it was all, I always seemed like a task. Like, we need to get this done, this done, this done. We need to do this. It was a planner, take your homework home, whatever. Like, for me during that time, I was so stressed out. I'm like, I'm looking at all of this stuff I need to do. There is no way in hell I can do all of this. So if you're sitting there writing your future out or writing a list to do or anything, and if it's just getting too long or too complicated, I say just throw it out for a little bit.
Just
Like,
gut the whole thing.
yeah, just gut the whole thing, and then the first thing that comes to your gut that says it needs done or feels it needs done, then you do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or what you have resources and access to. Because I could sit here and say, save an entire country. Okay, well, I don't have the resources nor money or anything like that to save an entire country. So, like, I'm not going to write that down. Is it something that I wish and I aspire for? And then, like, yes, that is. But I'm not going to write it down right now because it's not realistic.
Yeah.
Setting a goal, like, weight, like, especially with this one, like, if you're trying to change your weight, like, maybe your New Year's resolution is you're trying to lose weight. It's really important that for that resolution to become possible, put something out there that is realistic.
Yeah.
Don't say, I want to lose 100 pounds in 2 months.
And I'm going to look up every single possible way to lose weight and exercise and eat right, and write all of those things down so I can commit it to memory. It's like no, really, you need to start out plain and simple what you can do.
I'm going to cut out bread for a week.
Yeah,
I'm going to, like, yeah, and that's small, realistic.
Small. Keep it moving, though, if it's small,
keep going up.
Pile on a little bit more as you go.
Exactly.
And, like that's
See, we might have
momentum.
just cheated something there, so I hope you guys listened to all that, because I think we're on to something.
We're on to something.
But, that makes me think about my values a lot. Like, to think, because what you put your time and energy into is just straight up what you care about.
Yeah.
And I think, like, when you have too many things that you're putting your time and energy to, that's where it becomes complicated. And
you lose touch with the relationships that you have.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, especially, it gets back to my point earlier, just about how we tend to focus on, like, things, like objects, objectives. I mean, that's what goals are, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like it takes us away from the more simple and subtle things, like the familial relationships we have, and like the love that we can share with just people around us, but it doesn't have to be anything over the top, but just being around them and being kind and like cherishing that way you're not so worried.
Right, even if it's just like you're sitting there and you're next to your family member or your friend or whoever and you're like, hey, can you hand me that thing over there? Like, they were there to do that for you. That is awesome. And then, I mean, that's probably not the best example, but I mean, utilize each other, not in that way. But what I'm saying is, like, when you are with more than one person in a room, whether it be a family member or not, maybe it's just me, but I'm always interested in, like, when somebody's not talking or when they're not doing anything or they're doing something but not really, if they're just watching TV or whatever, like, I'm always curious as to, like, what are they thinking about? Like, is there something they'd rather be doing? Is it, you know what I mean? Like,
try and engage with them.
Yeah, like, why are they not talking to me? Why am I not talking to them? So, and I feel like at family events, it's like that sometimes for me. I don't know if it's like that for other people, but sometimes I find myself in situations where I'm like, why do I feel awkward around all of you people?
Yeah. Like, we're family.
Yeah, I'm dissociated because we didn't grow up culturally, like, close as a family. A lot of people in my family is huge.
Yeah.
But do I connect on each level interpersonally with each of them? No. Like, and that sometimes makes me sad. But would I really have the time and energy to do that? Is there a number of people, places, and things that can fill up your time and energy?
Yeah.
Like, seriously, I mean, how
definitely.
does that work?
Yeah, there's definitely a balance to it because there's only so much time in the day.
Yeah. And then you think, like, we were just talking about, because Steven is a really big meditator. Like, it's not something that he just does, here and there. Like, it's something he's really dedicated to for a while now. And we were just talking about that too, like how doing nothing, trying to think nothing or whatever, and how important it can be to have that alone time with yourself and with whatever it is going on with your mind and body at that time, and just how it is to, like, feel what you're.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like another wave of meditation talk has been going around, like, the past decade or so.
Yeah,
I would say. I mean, it's always kind of been around.
Because I think it's because we are getting to genuinely know, like, this actually works. Like, studying people who have done it for years and then studying people who have, probably never even heard of meditation. Like, it has genuine beneficial effects of the brain.
Yeah. And because we're spending so much time rushing around and always having thoughts on our mind, trying to plan things, trying to see how much we can fit into our day so we can be satisfied.
Listening to our ego all day because we don't know how to quiet it or ignore it or...
Yeah, just our inner voice.
And that I think, like, I know before I understood specifically how to cope with my anxiety that I had before, like, realizing everything that I do now and not having anxiety, it's so crazy to me to think, like, this is genuine. People go and live their lives every single day with anxiety and depression and all of these debilitating mental illnesses that nobody can physically see.
Yeah.
And then it's like, it's so hard because that motivation isn't there sometimes when somebody is feeling mentally drained from being anxious or depressed.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the number one concept of being able to be mindful, is to be able to give yourself that time and energy for yourself.
It's like recharging.
Yeah.
I mean, when we sleep, we think of that as recharging our minds. But
that's like the last thing our mind does when we are dreaming and sleeping. That's what's so funny. REM sleep, if it weren't for the unknown reasons of it, we probably wouldn't even understand the fact that, dreaming and things, although not always connected to real life, like, sometimes little things, like, if you aren't dreaming, then you're probably not getting REM sleep, which means you're probably not sleeping.
Yeah, your mind's actually not resting.
Exactly. So sometimes it can be important, like, if you're having a lot of dreams and you're kind of remembering them, or you're just feeling them at least, that's actually really healthy, because that means that you're sleeping. That means that your REM sleep has completely went in and you're dreaming and your body has completely been to a state of rest. Yeah. And that helps with mental, obviously. I mean, not sleeping makes you crazy. I've done that. I've drove from Arizona all the way to Ohio And I know what crazy and not sleeping like is. Like,
yeah, I bet. I mean, driving,
yeah,
not having somebody there to take over the wheel either.
Right.
Like,
well, and that
I mean,
that is not safe, and don't do that. But what I'm saying is, comparatively, like, not sleeping good enough can affect things all the way to your morals and to your values and to your it's the resistance that's the book. There's this book, like The War of Art, I think that's what it's called, but that's what this guy talks about so much in it. And I haven't read all of it, but just from the parts I have, and him talking so much about resistance and how if we don't kill our own resistance, we will never feel the success that we all thrive to feel. And I mean, that could be just opinion, but I believe it.
Yeah, resistance is what's holding us back, essentially. From what I understand with what you're saying is just, and I think how you're connecting it there is that when you feel general negativity, whether it's related to depression, anxiety, or just imbalance in your life, overeating, not getting enough exercise, not sleeping enough, all of that creates some kind of resistance within you because you're not fully present, you're not fully engaged in whatever you could be if you had all those things set in place correctly.
I'm shaking my head so hard right now because that's exactly what I'm saying.
Yes, and it's it seems daunting, I think, for people to have to overcome all of these things at once, especially if they're in a really rough place.
Right.
So it's also important to not make a problem of whatever situation you're in, I think. Like if you are going through some kind of phase where you're hanging on to negativity or there's some kind of imbalance, like if you can ever pause to reflect on it, just realize that it's okay to be where you're at. Everybody has those times. So labeling it a problem itself can continue that resistance that you're talking about, I think.
Steven, I think one thing that's so important for everybody to know in 2021 is I think it is time for every single individual human being to meditate, to really try and learn. And I think for myself, to be more disciplined with time is my thing. Achieving just the smallest amount of meditated mindfulness is a huge success. And it might take a minute, it might take a week, a month, a year, like however long it's going to take you. Keep destroying the resistance and take that time and energy for yourself in 2021. Like, it is time to do uncomfortable work. That's how I feel. I strictly feel it is time to do uncomfortable work.
And the way you're presenting it makes it seem like a challenge, which is good, I think, because we're talking about motivation here. But
did I kind of sound forceful?
It sounded a little forceful, but that's all right. I mean, we are talking about motivation, but it's important to realize that, like, to be aware of yourself in the moment and to practice just breathing, really just focusing on that, not having thoughts. It's really that's all that it is. It's just breathing and not thinking. It's not a challenge. It's not like you're overcoming something. It's just letting go. Just letting
And I think that's what 2021 needs, is for a lot of things to get let go. And I think that because that's how meditation works, I think that, if myself included, obviously, when I'm forcing it on you guys, but really I'm just telling myself through you I need it. So, but, and yeah, I do think though that it should be a kind of a challenge that everybody should try and face. And maybe we can in a later episode talk about that more with you, Steven, is like, your journey and your routes and everything that you've done and how, where you're at.
Yeah, I've come quite a ways, I would say. I think I started practicing meditation probably about a year and a half ago or so. But it's definitely changed my perspective on a lot of things, and it's kind of helped me to settle into, who I am right now, whatever I'm doing. I'm more okay with, I guess.
Right. Well, that's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing to feel like, just
Just okay,
kind of at,
you know?
like, at rest with your feelings of everything, because not that you can't control it, but it's that you don't have the urge maybe to try to control everything anymore. Maybe that's something, because I feel like with
it kind of
the
just
small amounts of
starts to fade
meditation,
away.
yeah, the small amounts of meditation I do is solely for the fact of letting emotion go, because I think that if I could hold those things out for longer, it'd be more beneficial. But I think that even just behaviorally, everybody can start small. You know, just controlling your emotions, I think, is maybe not has everything to do with meditation, or maybe nothing.
It's
but
not
I
really
think
controlling. That's it's more about getting in touch with it, honestly. Like feeling your emotion and understanding it.
Well, I'm talking more based off of, for like a natural effect of meditation, like the afterwards. So during your, like, when somebody is in some type of meditation, like what you would claim as to be like your Zen meditation mode, like where either your thoughts are just coming and going naturally, or you have none, or you have a lot. Like either way, like you're still trying to get to that goal. And what I'm saying is, when you kind of practice that, even if it's in intervals and not as a long period of time, you can actually kind of change the way that you behave based off emotions. So I think, like,
definitely,
and it's important, because the way that you react is, you know, that's energy that you're putting out there. So I think that can, like, that, if that's what I mean when I'm saying meditation can also work your behavior in ways that you kind of want to be able to control that emotion. Like if somebody does something you don't like, instead of reacting in this way of being mad or angry or arguing or whatever, it could be more of like,
definitely.
So I just think that's interesting about it, because that's kind of what I do, and what helps me specifically is what I kind of meditate for. But I would love to, like, get into more realms of all of that.
Yeah, I've come to understand that you're a pretty passionate person, Brittany. So I can see where that would be helpful, I think, to focus on that.
And this might be of use or no use, but a thing that I do is I tend to write to-do list, and what I do is I write at the top, to-do list, and then I never write anything under it. Literally, I never do. And it's mainly because my mind works so fast that I'm like, to do, oh, I need to do this. And then I go and do that instead of writing the to-do list. But what I notice is I start the to-do list, and then instead of writing anything, I just start doing everything. And then it's like, well, that's what I was going to put on the list anyway.
Yeah.
So maybe there's a little motivation for you, so you don't get stressed out with, you know, trying to make a bunch of lists of like everything that you want to do in the whole world. But I think writing is a perfect way to start that.
Yeah, start small and take some time to think about it.
A letter a day.
And we hope that this episode has motivated you to bring in the new year. Not for any New Year's resolutions, but maybe if you want to give a label to whatever it is that you're doing that's new, you can. So we're here to remind you that it's not the end of the world.
One day we're going to get that, but it's not the end of the world.
Yes.
That's kind of what we were going to say, but we were going to say it together.
Yeah, it's all right. I think we got it pretty well that time.
All right. Well, everybody have a beautiful night or a beautiful day. Whenever you're listening to this, just make it beautiful.
Peace out.
Peace out.